interview presentation. Myself and Chantel Whidden are here. We're instructors at the college, and we're here to help you with getting your first job, or getting an interview at least, and helping you find the resources that you need, or provide you the resources that you need to helping you apply on a job, and assist you in being confident in getting that interview. So we'll start off with our agenda. So today we're going to talk about cover letters, some do's and sample cover letters. We'll talk about your resume, do's and don'ts, and provide you with some sample resumes as well. We'll talk about the job search, going to Indeed, LinkedIn, or other portals that you might know of or haven't accessed before. So certainly we'll talk a little bit about the job search, and then we'll talk about what things that you should do before you apply. We will entertain questions. So if you do have a question, please type it in the chat, and we'll try and answer them as we go along, or certainly at the end we'll answer any questions. We have muted everyone for ease of the presentation. So if you do have a question, please use the chat function, or you can raise your hand and we'll certainly get to you by raising the hand. So cover letters, some of the things that we'd like to talk to you today about are the things that you should include in your cover letter once you've found a job posting that you'd like to apply on. Cover letter do's are that you should speak in your cover letter, speak about yourself and who you are. You want to highlight the transferable skills and highlight the relevant knowledge, skills, abilities, and other attributes that you have that will be transferable to be able to doing that job and relevant to the job itself. You should, in your cover letter, give the reader 2 reasons why the employer should hire you. You want to stand out, because employers and employment organizations, whether they're agencies or employers or large organizations, will get in lots of resumes through applicant tracking systems or through receiving them manually. They have lots to read through. So you want to be able to distinguish yourself right away by your cover letter, so that you want the reader to say, I want to read your resume. I want to look at this person's resume because of what they've seen on your cover letter. Make sure that you pay attention to your vocabulary, your spelling, and your grammar. Very, very important. First perceptions of a person are done by that cover letter and by your resume. And it's very important that you put forth a very good image of yourself. And by having poor vocabulary, spelling, and grammar in your cover letter will cause the reader to not want to look any further and look at your resume. So really very important in your cover letter, that is the first impression of who you are. And we want to make sure that your first impression is very desirable, and that you want the reader to want to continue to read your resume past your cover letter. So format is important. Keywords, utilizing keywords from the job posting that you have seen and you'd like to apply on. So ensuring that you've indicated some of those keywords from the job posting into your cover letter to pique the interest of the reader. You want your cover letter to be 1 page, 2 pages at the maximum opportunity. You don't want it to be beyond 2 pages because the reader, again, if they have to read a book, they're not going to want to read your resume. And so it's really important to keep your cover letter succinct and very neat and tidy, and keep it to a 1 page, maximum 2 at the very most. And again, just making sure that your spelling and grammar are spot on, and making sure that you have no mistakes in your letter with the font, with the format, and your vocabulary, spelling, and grammar are spot on. So here we've included a cover letter that is, that is certainly just a sample. And what it has on it, it's got the name and the contact information, the addressed to the recruiter or the organization or the company that you're applying to. It's got the body of the letter, and then at the end, your signature. So definitely you want to make sure that you have a very clean looking, professional looking cover letter for your reader to see that it shows the impression of who you are. You can put it on a letterhead, type of electronic letterhead, if you have that ability in doing that. But you certainly want to make sure that your coordinates are listed somewhere on the, whether that be in the header or the footer, to make it easy for the reader to know how to get a hold of you or to reply to your email or your application. You want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile, and we'll talk about LinkedIn in a little bit, but make sure that your LinkedIn profile is listed as a hyperlink if you are utilizing an applicant tracking system or an electronic format of submission of your cover letter and resume, so that it's easy for the recruiter to click on your LinkedIn profile, and that would take the recruiter directly and quickly to your LinkedIn profile. So it's very important to keep a very clean, succinct image on your cover letter. And as you can see, you want to make sure and go back to your business communication notes, for those of you who've taken business communication, and look at your proper formatting and utilize the opportunity in Word and whatever word processing systems you're using in making sure that your formats are correct, that you've got a basic margin of perhaps a ½ inch or 1 inch, and certainly a wrapping of your right-handed sentences to make sure it looks very clean and professional. I'm going to now turn it over to Chantal, and she's going to talk about resumes and what to do and what not to do.
Perfect. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, so everyone can hear me? Just making sure. Yes. All right. So I'm Chantal. Everyone may be wondering, why do I have some credentials to talk about resumes? I am one of the human resources instructors at Alpha, and I actually worked in human resources for over 6 years, and I did a lot of recruitment. I've seen thousands of resumes. And let me tell you, when you're a recruiter, resumes start to get really boring. You look at maybe 300 resumes for the same job, and you're staring at the same resume over and over. And what ends up happening in these resumes is you stop looking for what makes this resume different, and you actually start to look for the easiest way to get rid of this resume out of your pile, because you're actually trying to minimize 300 resumes and get down to a workable, easy pile of them as a recruiter if you don't have an applicant tracking system, and we'll talk about that as well. And so you're trying to get through them as quickly as possible. Most recruiters spend less than a minute on a resume. So think about that. You are given less than 1 minute to impress a recruiter. They are not reading every single word of your resume until you are already chosen as the top. If you are in the bottom few, you were spent less than a minute. So you need to make your resume pop. So give them a pop of color. Have those transferable skills listed at the top. You want to have those keywords from the job posting. You want to make sure you have a professional profile. You want to make sure that something in your resume stands out, and absolutely nothing in your resume puts you at the bottom of the pile. And so we're going to talk about resume don'ts in just a second. So many of you speak multiple languages. Put that on the resume. Stand out. Show that you speak multiple languages. You also want to talk to the fact that your resume is easy to look at. 1 page is actually quite preferable for many resumes, especially at entry-level roles. When you start getting into management or upper level, higher level professional jobs, that's when you can start to get to 2 pages. Rule of thumb is typically for every 10 years of experience, you have 1 full page. So if you have more than 10 years of experience, you can move on to 2 pages of a resume. You don't want more than 2 pages. Again, Less than a minute. So how do you sell yourself in less than a minute? What is that elevator pitch? Some of the things you want to avoid, so the resume don'ts, Cheryl's going to go to the next slide for me, is avoiding spelling errors. Again, we really want to make sure if you have a single spelling error, one little letter missing, that recruiter's dropping your resume. It's the only thing they need. They have 300 resumes. They need one excuse to get rid of your resume. Hard to read font. I've tried to pick a few interesting ones there. If they can't read your resume in 30 seconds, it's gone. If you've plagiarized a job posting, likely the recruiter is the one who made the job posting. If they start reading the exact same sentences, it's gone. Well, they didn't put any original thought into it. Those really old-fashioned objective statements, my objective is to get a job in your company, that's a waste of their time. They don't want to read it. Any sort of protected personal information. So in Canada, we have very, very strict human rights. Even though they are your human rights and you are not to be discriminated against them, recruiters don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So they don't want to say that they discriminated against you one way or another. So they don't even want to deal with a resume that has anything on it. If it's on there, they're just going to put it in the no pile because they don't want to deal with the fact that they knew that information going into it. So your marital status, your age, your religion, your nationality, your gender identity, all of these things are not something you put on a Canadian resume. Photos are often a no-go. The one area you can sort of get away with it is marketing, because it's also similar to a LinkedIn profile. I would just strongly go with don't put your photo on a resume as the overall rule of thumb. If you get into a creative career, you could have an argument with me and you might win. Definitely don't put your hobbies. There's an old-fashioned signature line that some people put and say, I verify that all of this is valid and true. Very old-fashioned, don't do it. References available upon request, it's implied. All of this is wasting space on your resume. You have 30 seconds, okay? So yeah, go ahead, Cheryl. This is a sample resume. Again, I just pulled this off of Google. This is not anyone I know, probably just a fake person. But what it shows at the top, that summary, is really a professional profile. It's a little blurb of this is who I am. Most recruiters, that is what they're reading. They're going to read this is who I am. If it catches them, they're going to skim the experience. And when they skim the experience, they're actually just looking at the years and the job title. They aren't really going to get into the nitty gritties of your experience until they've started to select you as their top potentials. They're really just skimming high level, right? They're going to glance at your education. They're going to look for the keys that they need that match that job description. The second they see something that doesn't match, you're gone. So you want to try and make sure that you're applying to jobs that more or less match. It's okay to not have everything identical. It's hard to find identical things, but you want to try and find a more or less best fit, and you want to try and highlight them the best you can. You see with this one, it's a splash of color, right? It's still easy to read, a little bit of red, the name stands out, all of the contact information is there, the highlights are there. Other things that aren't listed on this resume that you could list are volunteer experience, any sort of awards and achievements, especially when you're a new graduate. One of the things that I always strongly recommend to new graduates, don't sell yourself as a new graduate, sell yourself as a professional. You are a professional. You do not have to pretend to be a new graduate. You want to showcase yourself as the professional that you are, because you are now entering the business market. If you're trying to enter yourself as a new graduate, the business world will see you as a new graduate. Right? So these are some of the little things. Another little thing to keep in mind with the name, you want to make sure that it's legible. You want to make sure it catches the eye. You want it to stand out to the recruiter. So even when the recruiter picks you, they've probably picked a top, if it's 300 resume, a top 50, maybe a top 40, and then they still have to go through it. So they want you want your name to stand out. when they go through. After they've picked their top, I used a green, yellow, red system. A lot of organizers will do that. If you're in the greens, they still have to then scan down those greens and decide who they're going to do for phone interviews or who's going to be their first round of interviews. If they don't do phone interviews, they'll go through it again. If it's an applicant tracking system, so I mentioned ATS, applicant tracking system, it's going to be done by a computer. So it's not an actual person doing the recruitment. This is where those keywords come into play that Cheryl mentioned in the cover letter. It will still happen in the resume as well. So if you look in those highlights in the summary, even in the experience, things like process improvement, budgeting, project life cycle, those are likely keywords to the job that this person is applying to, and an applicant tracking system will actually look for keywords and will score resumes based on the keywords that are needed to perform the job. And so resumes will actually be filtered based on these keywords. And that's how applicant tracking systems work. So that's why it's so important to make sure you have those keywords in your resumes, especially if you know you're applying to a large organization that likely has a computerized system doing the initial screenings. Eventually, a recruiter will then look at the resume, but if you don't make it through that first computerized screening, you will never even be seen by a real person. So you want to make sure you've done that due diligence and gotten those keywords in it. So let's talk a little bit about the job search. How do we actually do the job search now that we have created our cover letter, if we need one? Not all jobs will require a cover letter, and gotten our resumes ready to go. We've decided, Cheryl and I have decided to focus on Indeed, LinkedIn, and briefly touch on a few other places. Why? Because this is the modern age. Indeed and LinkedIn are going to be your primary sources for job searching. If you go to other places, that is absolutely up to you, but they aren't going to be as mandatory for you to find a job. You can likely find a job through Indeed and LinkedIn, or potentially through your peers if you have some word of mouth and some referrals. But if you're just cold searching for a job, these are your two primary sources. So I'm going to touch on Indeed, and then I'll hand it back over to Cheryl for her to dive a little bit into LinkedIn. So Indeed is a really interesting search engine. It aggregates job posting sites from all other sites. So this is why Indeed is so ideal. You don't have to go to these more archaic sites such as Monster or Workopolis or any other of these types of sites that you may have heard of that may have used to been popular, because actually Indeed will pull from all of these sites. Sites you've never even heard of, such as Eluda, will also populate on Indeed. And on top of that, Indeed is actually its own web posting site as well. And employers can go to Indeed and post directly on Indeed, and it's actually a free posting site. It can be paid for and sponsored by the employer, or they can post for free. Because it's free, it is one of the most popular Canadian, I believe also in America as well, but we're talking about Canadian posting. It is one of the most popular because many workplaces don't want to have to pay for this recruitment. They want to go at a cheaper kind of side of recruitment, or they want to do a small amount of sponsoring. So Indeed is the go-to. The other amazing thing about Indeed is actually you can upload your resume directly to the site, and recruiters can use Indeed as an applicant tracking system, and they can do some versions of headhunting through Indeed. A lot of people don't know about this, but it has a full recruitment system within Indeed. And so the recruiters can actually go into Indeed and look for resumes that are in the database, as well as post jobs directly into their software. So this is going to be your prime place to search for jobs. So let's give you a little tips and tricks on how to use Indeed to search for jobs efficiently and effectively. So when you first log into Indeed, there will be a what and a where. Many of you are located in the GTA, Toronto area. If you put in Toronto, it's going to show you a number of jobs in the Toronto area, not just Toronto. So you're going to type in the the keyword, the company, the job title, I would recommend you actually have a few different job titles. So if you're looking for something, I'll just stick with human resources because that's what I know very well. Say you're looking for an entry-level position in human resources. You could search for human resources administrator. You would also search for human resources coordinator. You might also search for human resources generalist. And you would actually do all three of these searches every single day, because you're going to pull different jobs depending on these different job titles. And so you're going to want to make sure that you're effectively looking for the different job titles that might be similar to the job you're looking for. So if you want to go to the next slide for me. On this side, this is actually where you the search that comes up. Some of these filters are important, and some of them, if you use them, you're actually going to filter out jobs that would have been good for you. So here's a sneaky part about Indeed. Not every single category is necessary for recruiters to fill in. So if you try and filter, you're actually going to filter out jobs that recruiters didn't put the information into. So for example, for location, if you put in within 25 kilometers, if you try to change that, the location that the recruiter has to put in is actually just a city. So if they just put in Toronto and they don't put in a postal code, they're just pulling a specific place in Toronto that Indeed has decided. It's not necessarily actually the company's postal code, because the company didn't have to put in the postal code. And so the only way to actually know where, for example, Core Architects Inc. is posted is to actually search for Core Architects Inc. and their location. You can't actually assume that the search that you're putting in is within 25 kilometers. So I actually recommend that you are very lenient with the search radius, because when you're doing that search, you may filter out companies that are actually right on your doorstep, but they didn't actually put in a location. The same goes for salary. This is completely optional. The employer does not have to put in a salary. You can leave that part blank. I know this because I was a recruiter. I used Indeed. And so if you filter by salary, when you click that drop down, you can filter anywhere from 0 to I think it's like $200 an hour. If you try and put a filter in, you will filter out jobs that don't have salaries. And so you may be filtering out jobs that are in your pay range, but you wouldn't find out the range until you communicate directly with the recruiter. The same thing will happen with job language. That doesn't always have to be put in. The base one that is always filled is English, but that recruiter may also be hoping for other languages to be spoken, but they aren't putting it in. So some of these filters, really what I recommend, if you see right above, I don't know if Cheryl, you can maybe circle it with your mouse, it says sort by relevance and date. Down a little on the left. Oh, yes, you see it there. So sort by relevance and date. One of the most important things you do is you need to search for a job every single day if you are looking for a job. And you want to actually sort by date. And what happens with Indeed, and you can actually use it, there's a phone application too. Many of you use your phone. I would install the app and use it. And you can save, if you create an account, you can save your searches. And every time you sort by date, it'll show you the new ones and it'll filter out the old ones. So the first time you do it, you're going to get something like 575 jobs that you see here. But then you want to sort by date, and every single day, you just want to look at the new ones. And so if you're doing this once a day or once every other day, you're only going to get the new ones with those keywords that you're looking at. That is how you effectively look for a job on Indeed. And it is pulling in and aggregating not just the jobs posted on Indeed, but it will link you out to other websites, including even many websites that directly are posted on their company. So that's how Indeed works. So Cheryl, you can take it away with LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So LinkedIn is an opportunity. It's a business Facebook. Essentially, it is a professional networking site where you can go in, create a profile, and be seen by others. And I don't want to say friend, but network with others who may be in the same profession as you or someone that you would like to connect with. But it's really an opportunity to network with other folks, whether they be in the same industry or industries that you would like to get into, but just network with other business people. So it's really important when you are establishing, and it's also like an online resume. So really it's about putting your profile, which is your resume, onto an internet-based portal that gives a viewer, someone who wants to network with you or who is searching for people, an opportunity to see a visual resume, or a visual what's the word I'm looking for? A visual, I guess that's
Profile.
the best profile. Thanks, Chantel. A visual profile of you and who you are, and what capacities and capabilities you've established, and your background. So it's really an online profile that identifies your knowledge, your skills, your attributes, and other qualities that you can contribute or have contributed in the business environment. So LinkedIn has expanded from being just a profile-based type of portal to one that recruiters use in searching out individuals for the jobs that they're trying to fill. So again, it's done by in a similar methodology of the applicant tracking systems, where they might put in, recruiters might search by certain words, whether it's an accountant or a CPA, certified professional accountant, or a human resources professional or human resources administrator. They will type that in to search for people with those knowledge, skills, abilities, and other competencies that they have. Now, you, for a job seeker, can do the same. So what you can do is, first of all, ensuring that your profile is up to date, because once you look at someone else's, they can look back at you. And again, if you have mistakes in grammar and spelling and word usage, that's going to be the first impression that people see of you. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile is spot on and correct and represents you in the best way possible, because it is a representation of you, just like your resume is. So when you're looking for a job through LinkedIn, you want to be able to do something very similar like you do in the Indeed portal, is keyword searches. So on the LinkedIn portal, you can type in the type of skill or the title of the job that you're looking for, or an individual company that perhaps there's a company that you would really like to work for. And then again, your city, the province, or the zip code, or the area, or the general area of where you would like to work. With that, it will give you a plethora of information and different jobs. And then you can also bookmark those jobs and ask LinkedIn to send you an email if other jobs similar to the one that you're looking at come available. And that will then prompt you to go back to LinkedIn and look at the jobs that are posted on LinkedIn. Companies are really using LinkedIn as a very niche opportunity to find professionals and find people in a professional capacity to fill the jobs that they're looking to fill. So while Indeed is great, and I really like Indeed as a portal, and for the many reasons that Chantel had identified, I, as a human resources professional, also used not only Indeed, but also used LinkedIn when I was trying to recruit individuals for the companies that I had worked for as well. So really making sure that your profile is up to date, knowing that it's spot on, it's clean, it looks good, it's crisp. It really identifies you as the professional. And then when you're looking for jobs using the LinkedIn portal, making sure that you're using keyword searches, making sure that you're looking at companies that you perhaps would like to work for, and also know that you can search people who work for those companies, or in particular those jobs that you're looking to perhaps have for yourself. And utilizing the people networking, you can utilize getting a recommendation. If you know someone that works at that company through LinkedIn, and you've connected with them and networked with them, you may be able to utilize them for a recommendation to the job or opportunity that has been posted on the LinkedIn portal. Other areas of portals that you can use are ZipRecruiter, which is a very prominent website now. Job fairs, they're not really prevalent in our current economy and current situation, but they are an opportunity for you to meet with recruiters face to face in a huge, whether it be a hotel, sometimes they're held at hotels, or a big auditorium, or right at the location of the employer. Sometimes they will have a job fair right at the location for you to see the premises of the employer and get a feel for the organization and the company that you're applying to. Recruitment agencies, whether that be temporary placements or permanent placements, are an opportunity for you to get your foot in the door, and they will certainly provide you with some testing that would be specific to the jobs that you're applying for, as well as giving you the temporary work placements to help you transition from a temporary to a permanent opportunity. Career pages on some company websites such as Randstad, Hayes, and Robert Half they're all recruitment agencies, and they certainly will post their jobs that they're looking to fill, whether that be on a temporary or full-time basis, and they will be posted on their websites. So Chantal, I'll let you close off.
Perfect. So some of the last things we just want to make sure that everyone is paying attention to. The biggest thing we want you to do is read the full job posting. When I was a recruiter, one of the biggest things that would happen is individuals who really want a job would just apply to, 5,000 jobs. And then when I would do a phone screen, they would say, sorry, what job is this again? What am I supposed to do? And that actually doesn't leave a good impression, and likely you're not going to get called in for an interview. So make sure you read the full job posting, and if you want to apply to 5,000 jobs, that's okay. Apply to 5,000 jobs, but know what 5,000 jobs you've applied to. So when you get a call for that job, you can immediately pull it up and you know what that recruiter is talking about, because you want to be impressive, especially if you get a phone call before you get invited to an interview. Often that phone call is a precursor to getting invited, and you need to impress them on the phone. So sound impressive. It's okay if they call you out of the blue and you say, I actually am not available right now. Can we schedule this to another time? And that's your tactic of getting some more information about the company. You don't have to be startled when they call you. You want to make sure that you make a good impression. So that may also mean researching the company, making sure you have some information about the company, knowing who you're applying for, knowing where that company is located. You want to ensure that it's something you're willing to commute to. Some people are willing to do an hour and a half commute every day. Some people are only willing to go as far as 15 minutes, right? So know that beforehand so that when the person calls you, you're ready to be willing to potentially accept that job. And finally, make sure you customize your application, whether it be a cover letter, a resume, both. Get those keywords in, make yourself sound impressive. Sometimes I've helped a lot of people with their resumes. Sometimes I go as far as to say that pop of color, make it the same color as the company colors. So go to the company website, find out what their color is, use that color on the resume. It's kind of this subtle way to connect yourself to the company, and the recruiter might not even notice, but many times what happens is the company color is kind of embedded in the recruiter's soul. They see the color everywhere. They might be drawn to that color because it's what is embellished in the company. So it's something that's really powerful. If you don't have a good resume, we've posted a couple of samples on the Career Center. I've just posted the website into chat. So there's a few templates that you can use to try and help you build a resume that's compliant with Canadian legislation and has the right tools. So you can use any of those tools to help you, making sure when you do that cover letter, you're following the tips that Cheryl provided. And I would love, before we do some questions, if Davey or Victoria, do you want to come online and just talk a little bit more about the future? There's a few more presentations that are going to happen this week, and you can just introduce those before we open the floor to questions.
Hi, hello. Thank you, Chantal. Thank you, Cheryl. This is David from the market team at Alpha. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Chantal, for the time. Thank you for sharing the knowledge. I think it's very important. I would also like to thank the students for the time of being here and welcome them to the career week we are preparing for the students. So for those who want, we have another workshop tomorrow. Okay, it's going to be at the same time, and the workshop tomorrow is going to be about job interviews. So we'll be sharing very useful tips for interviews. We know that some students are afraid of job interviews. They don't know what to say or what to expect. So we'll be sharing very nice tips for students. You will know the link to register for the workshop. It's alphacollege.ca/career week, and we hope to see you there. And if you have any questions, please, you can raise your hand or you can just type in the chat, okay? Thank you very much.
Okay, so one question that we've been asked is, does the college have their own hiring portal or any portals where we can find jobs? So perhaps Davi or Victoria, maybe you can answer that.
Yes, currently we don't have our own hiring portal. That's something we were thinking about, but that's something that we still need to work a lot to get. So currently we just recommend students to go to Indeed or LinkedIn, as your instructors were saying, because I think that's the most useful in the moment.
Perfect. So as we close out on this topic, I think things that you need to leave with from Chantal and I is make your first impression is permanent. Make it the best thing that you can be of yourself, because that recruiter is always going to have that first impression of you. So you want it to be the very best first impression you can make of yourself to that organization or that recruiter. So please make sure that your first impression is the best possible impression you can give. When you're applying to the job, know the company and know the position that you're applying for. Very, very important when you get to that next stage, whether that be a phone screen or an interview. Know who you are, know what the position that you're applying for and wanting to be in, and know the company. So do your research. Really, really important. So make sure that your first impression is awesome and spot on. Make sure that you know the company, and make sure that you know the job that you're applying for, and make sure that you know all that you can know about it, so that you, when you are able to articulate yourself in that interview or that pre-screen, as Chantal said, that you know what you're talking about. So you look professional, you are seen as professional, and you want to be professional. So take those three points, and we hope that you will be successful in all that you can do in applying for your job or your first job or any job that you're applying for as you go forward in your career. So with that, if there's no other comments or questions, I think we've run out of time, and everyone has class to get to at 1 o'clock. So thank you for joining us. And if there is any questions, you can certainly funnel them through the front desk, and we can certainly answer them, or through student services, and we can certainly answer them on an individual basis. So have a great afternoon. Stay safe, everyone, and be well.